Good morning, guys. We are covering 7.5. We're working with triangles instead of lines now, and just angles. So when we have a triangle is a polygon with 3 sides and 3 angles. Notice the tri for triangle, which I'm sure you're aware of. On the triangle to the left, we're looking at this one right here. The sides are X, Y, with the line on top, because that's a line segment that's going on, okay? Y, Z, so X, Y, Y, Z. We have X, Y, Y, Z, and then the last one is going to be X, Z. Right, wrong way. It really doesn't matter which way you write it either. I could have done ZX and that's fine. XZ with the line over it. Now we're talking about the angles. So we're going to just label, because it's the vertex is the only angle that's there for right here. So we're going to just label these as angle X, angle Y, and angle Z. Now, the angle sum theorem states that the sum, which is the adding of the measures of the 3 angles, is always 180 degrees. So when I add all the angles up, it's got to equal 180 degrees for triangles. Most of us already know that. Okay, so let's work a couple of examples. Here we go. Number 2. When I'm wanting to find out what X is, I'm wanting to find each missing measure. So that means I'm going to set up an equation. I'm going to have 68 plus 49 plus X equals 180. And yes, you do get to use a calculator. So when I add 68 plus 149, that gives me 117 plus X equals 180. Subtract 117, from each side. And we get that X equals 63 degrees. Next example, we're going to jump down to number 7, okay? Because most of these other ones right here are just put them all together, okay? One thing that you do need to pay attention is remember, when it's got this box, it's 90 degrees. That represents 90 degrees. Okay, so we want to find the measure of angle 1, 2, and 3. All right, one thing that I notice right off, okay, is I can use some information that I already know for the measure of angle 2. These 2 angles, angle 2 and 48, are vertical angles. So I know right off that the measure of angle 2 is going to be 48 degrees because of them being vertical angles. All right, so now that I know that, I can start to solve each triangle. So for the measure of angle 1, okay, we're going to make this one X. So we're going to have 48 plus 67 plus X equals 180. 48 plus 67 is 115 plus X equals 180. Subtract the 115 from both sides. And we get that X equals, I'll do it over here, X equals 65. So that means angle 1 is 65 degrees. I did that because of space, because I need to be able to work. So this is the work for angle 1. Now we're going to do the work for angle 3. Now what I need to remember is this box right here tells me that this angle is 90 degrees. So now I can do 48 plus 90 plus y, will make 3y, equals 180 degrees. 48 plus 90, that's 138 plus y equals 180. Subtract the 138. This zeroes out and we get that y equals 42. So that's going to be angle 3 is 42. And we have found all of those measures. Okay. Next example. I'm looking at number 8. Okay, this is pulling in more algebra in here. Remember, we want to find the value of x. Remember, all the angles add up to equal 180. So that means I'm going to do 5x plus 1 plus 14x plus 4x minus 5 equals 180. Okay, I'm not putting them in parentheses because it's all adding. If I were going to have to subtract anything, I would have to put these in parentheses the way they are written. The reason I'm not is because it's all addition. You throw in subtraction between the terms and it changes the ball game. Okay, so now we combine like terms. So here we go. So I'm going to combine my x terms. And that's going to give me 18x plus 5, which is 23x. And then I have my constants, which is 1 minus 5. So that's going to give me -4 equals 180. And now I continue to solve. So I'm going to add 4 to both sides. That zeroes out, and now I have 23x equals 184. Divide by 23, and x equals 8. Now, if it wanted me to find the angles, then I would just plug in the 8 into each expression and simplify to find the exact angle. Okay. Next page. Excuse me. Okay, here we go. So now we're going to talk about the different types of triangles. So here we go. All acute angles, okay, that would look like kind of almost like an equilateral triangle, because we'll talk about that as well in just a minute. That's talking about the sides. This one's called acute. An obtuse triangle is one that's got an obtuse angle in it. That's pretty pitiful triangle, but I'm not an artist. So this is obtuse. And then you have the right triangle, which is noted by the square or the box in the corner. And this is called right, or it would say it's 90 degrees. Okay, now we're going to label by the sides. This was labeled by the angles. So it's all acute for acute, one obtuse for obtuse, one right for the right. Next, we're talking classifying by the sides. Okay, no congruent sides. That means they're all different. So this symbolizes, when you've got the little dash marks, that's telling you whether it's congruent or not. These are all different measures. That's why we have 1 dash, 2 dashes, 3 dashes. This is called scalene. Okay, so that's no congruent sides. When you have 2 congruent sides, that's when 2 of your sides, which is also means that these 2 angles are the same. This is called isosceles. And then you have all sides are congruent. I'd make it look right, but I am not an artist. And this one is called equilateral. Okay, so now we're going to practice classifying for a minute. Okay, and when you classify, you have to classify by the angles and the sides. Okay, so we're going to jump down to number 14. Okay, so I'm going to look at this and I'm going to notice these two angles are the same. These two sides are the same. So therefore, I know right away that this is going to be isosceles. I don't spell that. I didn't spell it right. As long as I can tell what you're spelling and understand what you're spelling, but it's got to somewhat make sense. I am not an English teacher, so isosceles. But now I'm not sure about the measure for this angle right here. So that's where I'm going to have to do a little calculations. So I know all of them add up to 180. And I know if I add those two, that's going to give me 62. So I'm going to do 180 minus 62. And that's only because my goal right here is to classify, not to find the missing measure. If I'm finding the missing measure, we write the equation. So now I'm going to subtract. So this is going to become a 7, 10. So I have 118. So since this measure is 118, that's greater than 90. That's obtuse. So therefore, this is an isosceles obtuse triangle. Okay. Just a second. Okay, sorry for the interruption. Here we go. So let's finish and we're going to work number 16. Where did I put that other marker? Well, we'll figure that out in a minute. Okay, so here we go. So we're looking at 16. It says triangle JKL, the measure of angle J is 5x minus 3, K is 11x plus 3, L is 9x minus 3. Find the measure of each angle. So I've got to first find x. So we've got to find the measure, then we've got to find the measure of each angle. So we go to, so our first step, find x. Second step, plug in and find all angles. Third step is to classify the triangle. So there's my game plan. Find x, plug in and find all angles, and then we classify the triangle. And then we have to classify. All right, so here we go. We know that by the angle sum theorem, if I add all this together and equal 180, I can find x. So I'm going to have 5x minus 3 plus 11x plus 13 plus 9x minus 5 equals 180. And now I combine my like terms. So my x terms, that's going to be 20 plus 25x. And at the same time, I'm going to combine my constants. So that's -3 and -5. So that's -8 plus 13 gives me plus 5 equals 180. And now I start to solve. So I subtract 5 from both sides and I get 25x equals 175. Divide by 25. And I have that x equals 7. That's not my answer yet. This is just step 1. Now we have to find each measure. So we're going to have the measure of angle J is going to be found by doing 5 times 7 minus 3. So that's going to be 35 minus 3. So that means that's going to be 32 degrees. There's one answer. Then I have the measure of angle K, which is 11 times 5 plus 13. So that's going to be 55 plus 13, which is going to be, no, that's not a 5, that's a 7. That's supposed to be a 7. Shame on me. 7, I was looking at that 5 up there. So this is 77 plus 13. So that's 90 degrees. Ooh, that's some info right there. And my last angle, which is angle L, the measure of angle L. And that's going to be 9 times 7 minus 5. So that's going to be 63 minus 5, which is 58 degrees. So I've got all the measures of angle, all the measures for all the angles. So this is step 2. So now we have step 3 where we have to classify it. Step 3. The classifying is, that's where I see right here, this one right here, okay? 90 degrees. That tells me my classification is right triangle. Okay, you're going to finish up and you're going to do the odds and number 14 for your the odds from everything and number 14 on the classwork homework. So odds for all and number 14 from the classwork homework. Remember, if you have questions, make sure that you pause and repeat or come ask me. Have a great day.